When I worked at a web design agency, there was a really talented designer and also a very proficient programmer. And as the front-end developer, it was my job to help the two understand one another. So the conversations would kind of go like this. Hey Brad, so here's the design. I know it looks simple right now, but follow along. When you scroll, the screen is actually going to lock at about 25% of the viewport. And when that happens, I want these images right here to actually kind of swipe in one after another with a slight delay. And then right here, this shape, it's actually an inverted mask. And once you reach that mask, I want all of the images to flow up behind it, kind of like you're looking through a pair of binoculars. Think you can make that happen? Cool. I'd take some notes, I'd build out the templates, and then I'd have to take it to the programmer. What do you got for me today? You're gonna need another coffee. Actually, I'm gonna get you a whiskey. Thankfully, with the animation features baked right into Editor X, these conversations, they don't really need to happen anymore. And designers don't need to bug the programmers and can build their creative vision using cool animations, scrolling effects, cool interactions, all without having to code anything. So today, in this video, I'm gonna show you just what's possible with Editor X. Let's go. All right, so this is a website that we built on a previous series on this channel, and I think it looks pretty good. But the problem is it's missing some animation. So what's cool is it's actually quite easy to add some animations pretty quickly, and then you can kind of let your imagination run wild and get really creative. So let's start really simple here. In the hero section here, I actually want this image to give me a slight parallax effect. And I think it would be really cool if this text fade in or slide in or something, some combination of both. So I'm gonna click this image here and click the gear icon. So in the image settings here, I see scroll behavior, and right now it's set to none, but I can actually change it to two different settings here, parallax and reveal. I'm gonna choose parallax. Now if I preview the site and scroll, you can see that we actually have a slight parallax effect on that image, which is pretty cool. Now what I want to do is select this text and this little icon right here. It's called animation. If I click that, I can animate this entire container. There's lots of different animations to choose from here that are just baked into the system, and you can customize them as well. So if you don't like how a certain animation looks, you could change it from its position, its easing, how fast it happens, delays, lots of different things. So let's choose something like glide in. All right, so I'm gonna choose that and then customize. And I can customize the direction from which it comes. So right now it's coming from 270 degrees, so it's the left. If I wanted to like do it from a slight angle from the top left, it would look something like that. I think that looks a little cheesy. So I'm gonna do 270 where it was originally. And the distance, you can actually choose how far it happens. So let's see what that looks like. So it comes from further away, or if you want it to come from closer, so it's super subtle. Let's choose just somewhere in the middle there. The duration, 0.8. All right, and then you can delay it as well if you want. So that's an option. I might try something like fade in. I actually kind of like that. It's a little bit more gentle, let's call it. Now you can actually animate the entire container, but it kind of looks a little, in my opinion, clunky. The whole thing comes in at once. Let's just check it out. It's okay, but I feel like if each line would come in separately, that would be kind of cool. So let's turn those animations off. I'm gonna select the text, choose the animation, maybe float in. Yes, float in is kind of like fade and glide mixed together, and I'm actually gonna have it come from the left. And then I'm gonna select this text, animate. I'm gonna float that one in as well from the left, but I'm gonna delay it by like 0.3 seconds, and then select the button. I'm going to animate, and I'm gonna float that in as well. This one's gonna come from the bottom. Let's delay this one 0.6 seconds, and we're gonna have the title, headline, come in from the top. So we have like top, left, to bottom. Let's preview that. That's pretty cool. I kind of like that. And then we have our parallax effect. That's neat. Now, what if we were to do something with this header? Let's have the logo slide in or fade in float in perhaps. And let's have this whole nav bar just kind of come down from the top. Let's see if we can do that. That's my vision for this. I'm going to click on this logo here, animate, and I'm going to float in. And then we're going to select this entire nav container. Maybe I will glide in, and I'm going to glide that in from the top, which I can choose an actual direction here in degrees, which is going to be 0. Let's see. Now what I'd like to do is actually just take this next section here. I'm going to glide this one in, and it's going to come in from 90 degrees. So from the right. Okay. And then I'm going to select this stack with all the content in it. And I'm going to fade that in, but I'm going to delay that so that we give time for the container to come in. So that'll be like 1 second. And then this squiggly wave, I'm going to do something like reveal. Yes, let's reveal it. I'm going to take this image and I'm going to fade it in. So animate, I'm just going to fade it in. Now let's check it out. That build's kind of cool. Now I'm going to scroll down here, and this section, to me, what I want to happen is for each of these numbers to just fade in 1, 2, 3, just kind of makes sense. And I want this container to follow me down as I'm scrolling, because it just disappears. And I feel like, you know, maybe we can keep that text scrolling with us once we hit around here and then have it follow us. So here's how we do that. Let's start here. Select that container, and I'm not going to choose an animation. You can if you want, but I'm actually going to go over here to the inspector panel. And what you can do is choose position type and sticky or pinned. We're actually going to have it be sticky. Pinned is kind of like a fixed position that is always pinned to a certain area on your screen, and it will always stay there. But we're actually going to have it be sticky. And that means it will stick to a specific location on the viewport once you reach it. And then you can choose some settings here. So we want it to dock on the top. Left is fine too. And the offset is how much space from the top of the container do we want from the top of the screen. So do we want it to hit right here and keep going, or do we want to give it a little space? So we actually want to give it a little space. I'm going to choose something like 10%. So now if we preview this and I scroll, that will actually follow me. And see how it stops there? It follows me until the end, and it stops. Follows me back up. That's kind of neat. I like that. All right, so now we're going to make these 3 things animate. So it's simple. I'm just going to select this stack right here. I'm going to animate it, and so we're just going to have that one fade in as is. Then this second stack, we're going to fade that in, but we're going to customize it and delay it about 0.4 seconds. And then the third stack, we're going to fade it in, and that's going to be 0.8 seconds. And now if we preview, 1, 2, 3. And then we've got our sticky container until we reach the next section so we can move on. Very cool. All right, now into this section, what I would like to do is animate. I'm gonna float that in, customize it, float it in from the left. Okay, I'm gonna select the image, glide in. I'm just playing here. It's really up to you which animations you choose, and I'm just jamming. And now, squiggly line, I'm gonna fade that in, delay that like 1 second. Let's preview that. That's pretty tasteful. Now we're gonna do this where we scroll and this container will stick with us. I'm gonna click on this container over here in the inspector panel. The position type is gonna be sticky. Let's not give it an offset. I want this container to stick right to the top of the viewport. So, sticky. So cool. All right, now I'm just scrolling to the bottom of the site here, and I just want this footer to be a little bit more exciting. So I'm gonna slide this little, I don't know what to call it, vector art, squiggly. Tell me in the comments what you think this thing should be called. Vector squiggly wave? I think I'll go with that. We're gonna float this in, and I'm gonna make that come from the left. No, Brad, I'm actually going to reveal that. Yeah, that looks cool. And now I'm going to make this text. Probably going to animate that and do the old trusty float in from the left. I'm going to delay that 0.5 seconds, a totally arbitrary number. If you wanted in your style guide, you can actually choose how long you want your transitions to be for. If you want to be consistent, you can make a note and say, I want all my transitions to be 0.5 seconds if there's a delay, or I want them to last 2 seconds, just so all of it is consistent. Those sorts of things matter as well. But for now, for the demo purposes of me showing you how to do this, I'm literally just making numbers up. Okay, and what we're gonna do with this one is we're just gonna be a little silly. Let's just I don't know, arc it in, turn it in. Ooh, let's turn that in. And we'll do it from the left. No, we're gonna do that from the right. And we're gonna delay that 1 second. Preview. Whoa, that's a call to action, folks. Okay, so let's review our animations. All right, we got a couple fades, kind of pop down there. Our text came in from the left, or the top, left, and then the bottom. Image is parallax. We got a couple fades here, a couple little animations. 1, 2, 3. I'm scrolling, and this is sticky. This comes in, sticky. Very cool. All right. I think that works for this site. Just a few animations there, just to show you what you can do. It's really quite easy to set these up. Let's move on and play around with some more animations. Pretty cool, right? Let me know by hitting that like button. Go ahead, do it, do it, do it. Awesome. Okay, next, we're actually going to do something in Editor X called interactions. It's a neat feature that lets you create trigger and effect sort of animations, actions. There's lots of cool things you could do with it. Really, it's just your creativity that is the only limitation. So the more creative you are, the better. And also, I'm gonna show you how to take that creativity and actually put it into your site. So let's try that. One of my favorite things that we can do in Editor X is actually something called interactions. And so here in the inspector panel, there's something, when you select an element, you can choose interactions, and it lets you do something called triggers and effects. And this is where you can display effects when visitors either hover or click on an element, whatever element you choose. And then from that trigger, you can make an effect happen, which creates a unique visual experience on the element for each trigger. And you can do multiple triggers and effects, and you can customize what happens, and you really are only limited by your imagination. So what I'm gonna do here is add a button, and I want that button to be special. So let's start here by just add an element. We're just gonna pull in a good old fashioned button, nothing fancy, just normal, plain Jane button. Sorry, Jane. And it's a button. There's nothing great about it, you know. Let's make it better. So we can, by default, choose design in the inspector panel, and we can play around with what the button looks like. We want to change the color. Great, that's nice. But I want to do more than that. I'm going to make it have a custom hover effect where from the right side of the button, we have a color slide in on hover. And we can't do that by default here. I can choose a different color. So if I hover and I want it to change to green, then we can make that happen. When you hover, it'll change to green, but that's basic, and we don't want basic. So watch this. We're gonna take that border, that background out. No, we don't want any background. I'm gonna make sure that border, I'm gonna give it like that kind of darker red here, and we're gonna go for 2 pixels. And you know what, that border radius, cut. We don't want that border radius. No shadows, any of that. So far, so good. I'm liking how this looks. That's all we want right now. And on hover, we make sure we click on that, and we don't want any hover effects. So clear whatever is there out, get rid of it. Now what I need to do is create a container and put this button inside the container. And that container is gonna be really important for us to do our next couple steps. So to add a container, quick add, just grab a container, just throw it in here somewhere, attach it to the nav if you want. And then I'm going to select the button. I'm going to cut it, just Command X, or you can right click and cut. Select the container, and I'm going to paste it, Command V, or right click, paste. So the button is inside the container. Now I'm just going to position it up a little bit. So it's just top left, and I'm going to make the container the exact size of the button. So the button, we're looking at 142 by 46. pixels, that is. All right, so now our container is exactly the same size as our button. And I'm actually gonna make that container's background just nothing. I don't wanna see any background. I don't want any borders or any of that. Make sure everything is just standard invisible container. Okay, so we don't see anything different here on the screen. In the layers, however, you can see we've got our container that we just added and our Start Now button. I'm just gonna position that up so it's in the right spot and put it up to the right, maybe 10% from the edge of the screen. Next step is to make it so that when I hover, we want a color, maybe like that dark red color, to slide in from the edge and just reveal itself all the way to the edge here. And when we hover off, that will slide back. All right, inside the container, add a shape. Just gonna throw it inside the container here. And I'm gonna change the shape to just like a rectangle. We're gonna make it bigger than the container itself. It can be the exact same size if you want, but we can actually just make it really big. And then we're going to, in our layers panel, make sure the shape is behind the button. Okay, now obviously that looks like total trash. But fear not. We're gonna select our container and we're going to overflow that content and we're gonna hide any content that's overflowed. So we're essentially clipping and making a mask. Now we're getting somewhere. So this basic shape, I'm just gonna make sure it's positioned, top and left, docked properly here. Okay, now what I wanna do is by default, I want to not see this basic shape. So I'm going to make sure it's docked to the left, and from the left margin, I want it to be 100%. So it's 100% the width outside of the container. So it's the width of the container here is 100%, it's outside of this mask is what I'm trying to say here. So now we don't see it. What I want to do now is when I hover over this button, I want that basic shape to slide in, slide out. This is where interactions comes in. So I'm selecting that Start Now button, going over to interactions, going to triggers, and I'm going to add a trigger on hover. So when we hover over this element, the affected element, so this is which element do you want to manipulate? We can use self, which is manipulate this button, but we don't actually want to manipulate this element. We want to manipulate a different element. So I'm going to select this dropdown, choose on canvas, and because I can't see the container or the basic shape here, I could still choose it from the layers panel. There it is, hiding outside, click in that. So now the target element is basic shape, done. So now when I hover on the button element, the affected element is the basic shape. The action type is to apply an effect. And the effect, you can choose a whole bunch of different effects here, but I need to make a custom effect because these are just defaults, but you can do whatever you want with custom. So I got to build that in. Give it a name so that you can reuse it and choose it from that dropdown. I'm going to say move, start designing. And so now what do you want move to do? So I got the element selected here. There it is. So to set up the interaction timing, start making layout and design changes. So basically just do something and it will record that as what you want the interaction to be once or for this specific animation or interaction. I'm going to translate, which is essentially move it on the X and Y axis. I'm going to move it negative 100%. Remember how we moved it 100% from the left? We're actually now going to, on the X axis, which is horizontal, move it negative 100%. So back to where it was. There. You can change the easing to ease in, out, linear, and I'm going to have, and you could choose the timing of it. I like it as is. I'm going to hit play just to test it out. Looks like it slides in. Okay. And then hit done. So now I need to make sure that that is happening. So if I click on Start Now, click on triggers, I will see that I have the hover trigger, but there's no interaction happening yet. Add a new interaction, affected element, basic shape, done. Apply an effect, and the effect move is now at the top of our list. We can preview that. There we go. Hit done. So now we'll see triggers and effects. Right, well, triggers, you can see hover, apply, move on basic shape. You can add more effects here. You could just choose and you can create custom. So there's a couple of ways to do the same thing, but we have already done that. And you can do multiple effects. You can have other things happen as well. But right now I just want that to slide in. And I'm gonna hit preview. So now we have our button. If I hover, we should have that shape slide in and out. There it is. All right, let's play around with some sticky scrolls.
That sounds sticky and uncomfortable.
That sounds inappropriate. Let's do it anyway. So what I want to do is I have this section set up, a couple images offset in a grid, and just displaying information like how many employees and years in business and such. However you want to apply this to your website is up to you, but the idea here is I want each of these elements to be a little more exciting than just showing a couple images and just scrolling down and seeing these cards. I actually want it to seem like when I scroll, the section sticks, this image goes away, this one stays, and these cards kind of fly up and kind of stack on top of each other, almost like a deck of cards or something like that. So it's actually really easy. I have these elements, I selected this image, and the position type, instead of default, choose sticky. I'm not gonna offset from the top, I'm gonna keep it 0 right to the top, and I'm gonna do it for each of these elements. I'm gonna make the position sticky with no offset. So I'm gonna do that now. And in a matter of like 10 seconds, if I hit preview, watch this. I'm scrolling, stuck to the top, card comes up, stuck, 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 and then we continue on. That is a really neat way of kind of wowing your viewer with something that would otherwise be really boring information to add some visual interest to it. And now it's more exciting. And now I want to schedule that call. Remember that binocular thing I talked about earlier? Yeah, we're gonna try that. So in my search for cool websites, I came across this one called watchforwhales.com. It's a band, and they actually did have this website built on Editor X. And there's this cool effect where it looks like there's a pair of binoculars, or you're looking through a pair of binoculars at like an image with some text in there as well. But what happens is when I scroll, you actually kind of scroll through the images. And it's just a neat effect. And when you get to the last image, you essentially get to keep scrolling through the rest of the site. Now, I thought, let's try and create this effect in Editor X. The fact that this site is built in Editor X shows me that it is in fact possible, but even if it wasn't, I think we can make it work. So let's go to Editor X. And on our page here, I'm just gonna add a new section here. Okay, so in this binocular section, I'm just going to add some images. You can do that a number of ways, clicking the add elements, go to media, you can upload your own, or choose from the media from Wix Gallery, Shutterstock, Unsplash, whatever you choose. I have a few images that I'm just gonna add in here already. And currently they're just stacked on top of one another. And just so I can make it easier to see, I'm just gonna space them out for a second. I'm gonna give myself a little bit more space to work here, clicking on the binocular section, and I'm just gonna make it taller. Now I can get these images to be more the size and spacing that I want. And now that I have them kind of vertically on top of one another, I have the option to stack them. And so I'm gonna click that. Now they're stacked, I have more spacing and display options. So I'm actually just gonna make sure they're all aligned, and the spacing between them is gonna be 0. And I want them all to be 100% of the width of the container. So I'm just gonna select each and make sure that is the case. All right, and now I'm gonna take the stack, and I'm going to make the width of the stack 80% of the container that it is within, which is a section. It's not actually within a container. So it's 80% of the width of the section. I'm going to give that some alignment, and now it looks something like this. Now the next step for me is to put inside the binocular section a new container. So I'm going to add a container just inside somewhere around here, and I want to make sure that it is not wrapping anything, it's just an empty container. I'm going to align that to the left and the top, and I want to make sure the width is 100%, and the minimum height will be something like 960. Give the background an opacity of 0 so I can see through the container. I'm going to add some text, a generic sounding phrase, make that white. The size will be something like 60 or whatever. Back in our layers panel, we see that that level 1 heading is in the container, which is what I want. And now also in the container, I want to add another image. And this image is a custom image that I created called mask.png. I essentially just made a black background, masked out a binocular shape with transparent background behind it. So you should see through these little holes. So I'm just going to add that here, align this to the container that it is within. By clicking stretch, it will stretch it right out. And then I'm going to take this text and make sure that it is also centered vertically and horizontally. And now what you're going to see is something very unusual. Basically, we've got, this looks good. We got our background, we got that image masked with those cutouts, the text, and the image behind it. But if I scroll, it's just going to scroll down and we have this very weird layout that doesn't look good whatsoever. So to fix this, I simply click on the container with this binocular mask. I'm going to position this to sticky, make sure that there's no offset. If I preview this, it should work. I'm going to start scrolling, and essentially it's keeping the mask here and it's scrolling the images. And then once it gets to the bottom, it will go down. Now it looks like I don't see my bottom image there. So the way to fix that, let's go back to edit. So because of that issue, I'm actually just going to scroll down. It makes this horse picture taller because it's not really the right size of image. So I'm actually just going to select the image, scale it proportionally, see if that changes the ratio of the image. And I'm actually just going to make the image itself taller. I'm going to check the scale proportionally again to see if it resets, and it should adjust the image, go a little bit taller still. And now I will try again now that I have that taller, and there we go. Once I get to the bottom of the container, I will continue scrolling. That's pretty cool. So now if I check this out, we got some fades, some pop-ins, a parallax effect, some more animations, fade in. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got a sticky element. We get some more fades in here. Sticks, goes down. We get this neat effect here where the cards come up, kind of shuffle on top of one another. And then we get our really neat binocular effect where if I scroll, it sticks to the screen and I get to scroll through the binocular view and then move down to the end. Hand coding these animations for me would have just taken a really long time, or probably just been impossible, to be honest. What I appreciate about Editor X is it's kind of like having a personal developer who's happy to program your vision for you and doesn't complain and doesn't need too much coffee or whiskey. So if you like that video and you want to learn more about building amazing websites with Editor X, you're probably going to want to watch this video right here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our weekly videos, and we'll see you in the next one, friends.